the time for the first speaker, I give to Mr. Pamuda.
Okay, can you hear my voice, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Anthony. So as Dr. Anthony mentioned, we have a change of plan. So we start with the presentation of Pak Gunawan. So to save the time, let me first introduce Pak Gunawan shortly. Okay. Pak Gunawan Budi Wijaya graduated from Petra Christian University in 2004 and Asian Institute of Technology in Thailand in 2005, majoring in structural engineering. He is now a faculty member in the Civil Engineering Department in Petra Christian University. He had 5 years working experience in VSL Singapore and 1 year in ACOM Singapore, involved in Singapore Tuas West Extension projects as design coordinator in 2011 to 2012 for precast box girder construction for elevated MRT and road viaduct. His area of interest are bridge engineering, structural assessment, repair, and strengthening. Okay, without further ado, let me invite Mr. Wijaya, Gunawan Budi Wijaya, to deliver his presentation. Pak Gunawan, please go ahead. We have 45 minutes for presentation and another 30 minutes for discussion. Please go ahead. Pak Gunawan still muted. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Pamuda, for the brief introduction. But first of all, can I share screen here? Because I'm not the co-host yet.
Oh. Tolong dijadikan Pak Gunawan co-hostnya bisa?
Yes.
Can somebody switch Pak Gunawan rank to co-host?
Zoom 01 yang bisa.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a great honor for me to present here about this precast segmental planning and application. But because my interest is in the bridge construction, so I will try to present some of my experience during my time in Singapore the last time. So when we are talking about a precast segmental, it's some of the very interesting topic nowadays because it can somehow speed up the whole construction, especially when we are talking about bridges. When we're talking about a few kilometers of bridge, we need the speed. And this precast segmental method is one of the best option that we need to, one of the best option that we can choose. In short, for precast, that mainly there are 2 places that we need to work on. Actually 3. Yeah. The first one is a casting yard, and then the other one is the project site. And then we actually need the office to do all the planning and the design. But the actual work actually happening in the casting yard, where we do the production of the segmental. So while on site, they are doing the foundation work, they are doing the substructure work, like a pier, apartment, all these things. We can start doing the production of the segment. So that's how we can speed up the whole process thing. And if, for example, the site is not ready yet, in the casting yard itself, we can do the storage while waiting for the sites to be ready, all the foundation or the piers, something like that. Once the sites are ready, we need to deliver the segment to the site. And then on site, basically this is what we are doing. We do the erection, meaning that we leave the segment, and then we do the installation on site. So when we're talking about the construction work, we're doing something like this. So from the office, when we do the design and then do the casting yard, and then we deliver to the project site. But when we are doing about the planning must start from the project sites backwards, meaning that to do a proper planning, or for example, yes, we are a design engineer, for example, or a planning engineer, we have to really understand what is going on site, so that we can plan properly, because different installation method, different erection method, all the design and all the planning will be completely different. That's why we have to really understand what is going on. So the way I do my presentation now is that I will start from what's going on site, and then we do backwards to the casting yards, because that's how we should plan our work. And in terms of the site installation, or maybe a site construction method, there are a few methods that we can choose. And basically, this is some of the advantages, meaning that why we prefer to do the precast segmental is because the casting we can perform on the casting yard, on the plant, comparing if we are doing the cast in situ on site, it will be very difficult. If we are doing in the casting yard, it will be better. We can perform our quality control much better. All the surfacing, the finishing, texturing, sandblasting, painting, all these things, we can do it on the ground level. That's why the quality we can control the quality better compared to if we are doing on site. And save cost of the reuse of the precasting formwork, because we are not doing the full span, we are doing the segmental. The segment can be precast during the substructure works, meaning that is overlapping activities. And then, I'm not going to say easy quality control, but it's relatively easier quality control, prior to the placement of the superstructure. Then assembly on site, the installation on site will be much faster. It's like we are playing a Lego. So we put all these pieces, all these segments, we erect on site, and then we just join together. It is much faster rather than if we have to do cast in situ. While we need some times to do the curing before we can proceed for the next span, because we are talking about the horizontal structures. But the disadvantages is that we need a little bit more investment in terms of the casting yard. While in the casting yard, there are so many equipments. Later, I will show what do we have in the casting yard, like adjustable formwork, and then some lifting equipment. And then we have to deliver the segments from the casting yard to the site, which may not be possible in some of the area. This is something that we really need to do the planning properly. And then, in terms of the construction method, this is some of the method that I'm going to discuss today. Actually, there are a lot of methods using the precast, but these are the 5 most common methods for the precast beam. I will try to run through it one by one. The first one is the full span precast beam. This is very common. It's basically we are using a precast beam, pre-stressed beam, definitely, and then we just deliver on site. We just put one by one something like this, and then we can do the cast in situ concrete slab. This is very common. But of course, the length of the beam is very limited. Yeah, we cannot do this for the longer span. And there are some variation. For example, the beam is precast and then the slab is cast in situ, or we can also have a precast beam and then the slab itself is a prefab, also precast. And then we do some joint on site, something like this. It also can be done. And also the diaphragm can be precast, and also some can also be cast in situ. And then there are also some variation like a precast slab and beam. It's like a double T, yeah, double T full span. We just need to precast this in the casting yard, while on site they are doing the foundation. And then once ready, just deliver all these things and install on site to speed up all the construction work. Okay, this is something interesting happening in my hometown in Surabaya. We have this Suramadu Bridge. In one of the section is a causeway section. We have this beam. It's a precast beam by girder. The weight is almost 80 tons, but the length is 40 meters. The problem with this is that the casting yard is somewhere here and the bridge is here. So it will be completely impossible for us to deliver this 40-meter long of beams through the city area. It's definitely impossible. So what they do is that this is why the planning is very, very critical. Because they cannot deliver this 40-meter length of beam. They are cutting the beams into segments. They cut the beam into 7 segments, something like this. So each segment is about 6 meters long. Then they delivered from the casting yard to the site. So it is still possible. And then on site, they're just joined together using the post-tensioning. After they do the post-tensioning, then they lift the beams using crane and install it. So this is how they do it. They cut into segmental. And then they do a one by one, and then they put the diaphragm. They are using the diaphragm itself. They are using the precast also. And this is how they do the lifting. I show some of the video. This is some of the method, because when we are doing the precast, we have to think, we have to plan how to erect and how to install. This is one of the way that we can do is using 2 cranes, and they have to move synchronously and do something like this one by one. Then the next for the next beam, and the diaphragm itself also. So this is the one that near the land area, but the one further, this is how they do it. So they just rail, they're using rail, and then they just slide, and there is some structure, some frame structure to catch and put in place. This is actually the fun part about this precast. We have to find the most creative method to do the erection and also to do the installation on site. And once everything settled, then they just do the complete casting of the cast in situ of the slab. So that's very straightforward. And then for the beam itself, I mean, if we have to do the planning, we actually have 2 types. One is the pre-tension, meaning that we do the pre-stretching first, and then we do the casting, and then after that we do the transfers. And once we do the transfers, there is a compression, and then the counter bending moment, compression and tension, something like this. And then when we do the handling or erection, we have to be careful of this additional self weight, the bending moment, depending on which point of the lifting, which of the lifting point. And then this is during the erection, and this is during the surface, meaning that during daytime there is a full live load, and during nighttime there is no live load, only the superimposed or only the permanent, the sustained load. So all these things we have to plan properly, meaning that in all stages the stresses must be within the limit. Another option that we can do for our planning or our design is, okay, this is some of the typical PSPC beam, the pre-stressed precast beam. Another method that we can do is the post-tensioning, meaning that we cast the concrete first, and then we do the stressing. After we do the stressing, then the beam already under stresses. Then we do the grouting. Again, we do the lifting. Depending on the lifting point, there will be additional stresses due to the self weight. Then during the erection, again the point might be different from the lifting point, yeah, the bearing location. And then during the surface, something like that. And this is the typical post-tension beam. This is the rebar. Then after they do the concreting, they do the stressing. Another method is that rather than we are doing beams, and then we do the cast in slab, people start to think, what if we can do something like this, so that we do not need to do a double work, meaning that we do the beam and slab, we do it together, something like this. So for the box girder, we have this one single cell, or the twin cell, or the 3 cells, or a 2-1 cell, something like this, depending on the width of the traffic. So this is how we do the planning on site. So we do the beam and slab together, something like that, in one lift. But the thing is, for the precast box girder, if we are doing the full span, it will be very heavy because they have to lift everything together. That's why the span is very limited. This is one of the case in Singapore MRT, and this is some case of in Taiwan. So lifting this whole thing is very, it's not easy. I mean, we have to plan properly. Do we have the equipment to do this? But again, this is very fast because we can do span by span at one shot. I will show some of one of the video here. This is happening in Jakarta just recently, I think last week. They are doing the full span box girder. So they're carrying, this is something that we have to plan properly, how to carry all these things. So they have this transporter, and then this have the launcher here. And this launcher, this big giant equipment must catch the segment and then slowly lowering down. So this happened just recently, I think last week. This is Jakarta Bandung, the new railways viaduct something. And then they have to do the bearing pad here, to the proper installation, and then they're just lowering down again. It is very, very fast. But again, the investment is huge because they have to invest for the equipment. And then the casting yard must follow. The design also must follow if they choose to use this kind of construction method. Some people, rather than doing this full span, some people think, okay, what if we can do it segment by segment so that it's easier to do it on site? So they start to think about this segmental. And again, depending on site, they are doing one of the possible method is using the false work. If we can have the access, which is very luxurious in the bridge construction, most of the time we do not have this luxury of having the access down here. But if, let's say, we can put the false work here, it will be good. So that we can put the false work here, and then we can leave using crane and put the segment one by one, and then they join together. Yeah, and this false work must have some flexibility because the land may not be straight, and then the bridge alignment also may not be straight. So they have to be very flexible here. And then after they finish span by span, so they finish one span, they move to the next span, and then while they are doing this, they are dismantling this false work, they move to the other side. And if we are doing this span by span, if we are doing the design is mainly simply supported beam if they join together. Another method is that we can use this launching gantry. This is happening if we cannot have the access here, meaning that we cannot install the false work. We can only send the segment. Either we can deliver the segment from the bottom, or we can deliver the segment from the top. This is the launching gantry. Okay, this is happening in Jakarta. Yeah, this is how it looks. Yeah, they're doing a span by span, meaning that they finish one span, and then the launching gantry will move to the next span, and then they start lifting the segment all together, and then they join together one by one. Then it moves to the next span, moves to the next span. This is very fast. This operation is very fast compared to if, let's say, we do the cast in situ. This is much faster. But again, the planning itself must be very precise because we are doing some precasting, and then the schedule is very fast here. So this is how it looks. So they are lifting all the beam, all the segments, while people can still moving around underneath, and then they will do the joining together one by one. Okay, this is how it looks. And usually some of the segment will be lifted a little bit higher. That's a reason for that. I will show the reason why they do something like this. Okay, I will move to the next video. This is what happened on site. So there is some rebar here where the segment is arrived, and then they catch the segment, they lift it up, and then they move to the place, and then they put the segment on this bar so that this can be free, and then they do it together for the subsequent segments. Then they just leave again. Then they hang this segment to this tie bar. And by the way, this segment is about 30 or 40 tons. Yeah, it's very heavy. And they continue something like this. This is the one of the common practice, meaning that they live all together and then they join one by one. This is a very common method. Although there are some variation that can be done. Okay, this is some of the animation. I try to do the simulation. Yeah. So all this segment is hanged on the launching gantry here. So what they are doing is actually they lower down and then they install here, they join, and then this one they also join. They're doing one by one. Yeah, something like this. The reason why they have to do it up and down, because if we are doing all something like this, there is no space due to the installation. So once they complete like this, they do the post tensioning, and because this is a simply supported, so it's easy. It's only the positive bending moment, and they can do the post tensioning. Definitely post tensioning. There is no way we do the pre-tension here. Definitely post tensioning. Then they lower down and then they do the adjustment on the alignment, because some of the bridge may be straight, some of the bridge may have a gradient, or for example, if the bridge is have a radius, there will be a slight crossfall, and they do it here to the from the bearing, the adjustment, the alignment, something like this. Another method that can be done is something like this. Show the video. Span by span, means that they do one span, then move to the next span. So they catch this segment here, and then they catch, they lift, and then they hang to the tie bar. Once they hang to the tie bar, this can be released to catch another segment. Yeah, here they install one by one. So they lift, they install, they lift, they install. It also can be done this way. Then this is the last segment. Do the adjustment, the alignment. Then they do the post tensioning. So this is how the post tensioning looks like inside the box. And they do the joint of the jointing of the duct, the tendon. And then they move to the next segment, to the next span. No, sorry, stressing first. Yeah, this is how they do the stressing. Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, for some of you who are interested in this, I post the video link, yeah, in my presentation. Okay, now we're talking about the joining. How are we supposed to do the joining? Okay, in the casting yard, the tendon looks like this. I mean, because it's only a positive bending moment, so definitely the tendon will be here, mostly at the bottom. Okay, and they do this. This is so-called the shear key. So on side, it will look something like this. I draw a little bit exaggerated. So this is actually the shear key, and on side we call it the we call it the male shear key, and this is the female shear key. That's how site people call it. And it has to match perfectly. Okay, what they are doing on site, first, they are applying the grout. They're applying the grout. And then they join together. Hopefully it matches. Hopefully it matches. Yeah. Imagine if you're doing something up already on the top, and then it doesn't match, it will be a disaster. Yeah. So that's why the planning must be very, very perfect, very, very accurate. So once they join like this, okay, they join so many segments, and then ultimately they are doing the post-tensioning. So once they do the post-tensioning, it apply a compression force so that it's can be joined together. So the joint actually using the shear key, the grout, and the post-tensioning. There is actually no longitudinal rebar between the segment. So the rebar only stops between segments. There is no continuity in between the segments. The continuity only from the post-tensioning. So this is how they do it on site. And how do they make sure 100% match is that they are using the so-called the match cast. So this is how we do the planning. In the casting yard, they have to do this so-called match cast. So after they cast the first segment, they are using the first segment as a match, to match the other one, to match the next segment. So if we are doing is a match casting in the casting yard, on site, it will be 100% match between the male and the female, something like that. Even if there is a radius, we can also do the match cast, something like that. Also, if there is a gradient, also we can do everything here in the casting yard. And because we know that this will be lifted using crane or using launching gantry, in the casting yard, they have to put the inserts so that on site they can catch and lift. Imagine if there is nothing here, then there is no way on site they can lift it out. So everything must be planned properly depending on what is the situation on site. Then we move backward to the casting yard and then move backward to the design when people do the design. So this is how the match cast thing. I will show some video about what's happening in the casting yard and how can they do the match cast. So this is the adjustable formwork. It has to be very flexible because the type of the segments can be anything. The dimension, the thickness, and if there is a radius or whatsoever. So this is the matching segment. Yeah, this is the formwork. It has to be flexible, meaning that it can do some adjustment. There is a hydraulic jack that can shift the angle of this thing. And this is for the end segment. Okay. And this is the inner form. So we have the outer form and we have the inner form, which is again is adjustable. Again, this is also an investment. So this is the match cast. They put the rebar and then they do the casting. They release the formwork. And this is how they release the formwork. Everything is done by a hydraulic jacks. Then they lift, then they put in the storage. waiting for the site to be ready. See, there's a shear, yeah, the shear this thing. Okay, they do some adjustment in the alignment. Then the rebar cage just arrived. Make sure all the dimension, the alignment of this thing is correct. Then they can do the casting. This is very important, especially the post-tensioning duct. Because later on, they will have to the post-tensioning. So the duct itself must be matched. So this is how the casting yard look like. Okay, then I think I have one more video, but so this is what's happening on site. So this is the inner form, and then this is the ducting for the post tensioning, and this is the match cast, the previous segment. And because this is a precast, anything wrong in the casting yard, it's very difficult to do some rectification work on site. It's very difficult. That's why the planning itself must be very, very accurate. Okay, another method is using the balance cantilever. Again, if we are talking about the construction sequence, definitely we start from the foundation, the pier, and then the pier head. So this is actually what we have on site. So if we want to do the segment, we have to start from here actually. That's why they invent this method called the balance cantilever. What's happening is something like this. They put something here. It can be a lifting frame. It can be just a crane whatsoever. Meaning that they put the first segments here and then they join. What's happening here is that they will induce a bending moment, a negative bending moment. And because there's a negative bending moment here, we put the post tensioning on the top fiber. Then this thing going out again. Install the next segment, the bending moment increases. Then we put another tendon on top to carry this bending moment, and so on. It keeps increasing. And then at the end, definitely at the very last end, we have to do a cast in situ, the closure pour, because there is no way we can do all by precast. To match this perfectly by precast, there's no way. So the last segment will be a closure pour using the cast in situ. Once it's joined, all the bending moment becomes different. Now become a continuous structure. Then after this, all the live load comes, and it will increase the positive bending moment because all the live load later on will come. But during the construction, this is the critical point. That's why later on when we do the design, we have to be careful of this negative bending moment. Although once it's connected, it will be slightly less. That's why we need the continuity tendon at the bottom, something like this. So this is the cantilever tendon, and this is the continuity tendon. Cantilever tendon at the top to carry the cantilever weight, and this is to carry the live load at the final stage. So this balance cantilever is actually building the bridge from both sides, and we have to balance maximum only one segment different. Yeah, maximum only one segment difference, cannot be different so much because this of the overturning bending moment will be huge at the pier and then transfer to the foundation. Advantage: no false work required. Yeah, these are the area that are free because we are doing everything on the top, from the top. Visible when the terrain under us is inaccessible, traffic, rivers, even the cliff or high above the ground. Optimization of the framework, improvement power, very flexible. And this is how we put on site that why do we need to know the construction method? Because the tendon layout will be different. If we choose to have a balance cantilever, most of the tendon will be on the top. But if we are doing span by span, most of the tendon will be at the bottom because of positive bending moment. And this is because of the negative bending moment. And because this is a precast, we have to make sure the very first segment is connected well to the pier. That's why we have to do a vertical post tensioning to make it press perfectly. Some people like to do the segment straight in the casting yard and then somehow rotate to the angle, something like this on site. Can be done. Some people prefer to make it straight, meaning that in the casting yard itself, they cast the segment this shape. So that on site, they just connect it vertically like this. Either way, we have to do the proper planning. Both ways are possible and feasible. Even there is a gradient like this, or even there is a crossfall. It can be done perfectly if we know what's going on site and if we know how to plan it properly. This is I show some of the project I've involved. Yeah, this is the one in Hong Kong.
Pak Gunawan.
Yep.
You have about 5 more minutes. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yeah, this is just to show that we have to do the balance cantilever. We stress the top cantilever tendon and then we shift, something like this. So after we finish the top, then we do the closure port. Then all the equipment is released back. Then we do the bottom tendon. This is what we are doing in Hong Kong the last time. This is something also very important to be considered. For example, if we are doing without camber, on site due to the cantilever and then due to the self weight, it will go down something like this. That's why when we do the planning, we have to aim slightly up so that on site it will be just nice. Everything can be done properly, everything can be calculated, and everything can be planned. Because if you're talking about 200-meter span, for example, and then we go 4 meter, 4 meter, 4 meter, then there is a chance that we do not meet at the center, and it will be very dangerous. Although things can be done, I mean, we can do some rectification work, but it will be difficult. So this is the pre-camber is very important. Although if you are doing the precast, it will not that much compared to if we doing a cast in situ. This is what we call the civil wars. It doesn't meet each other at the site, at the center. And because it's a balance cantilever, yeah, we can do the adjustment of the segment. If you notice, this is a thicker and this gets smaller and smaller. This can be done using precast or using cast in situ, where we do not have any access from here. We are doing everything from the top. It can be done using crane. Just lift using crane one by one. Very easy method. We can do the lifting frame. We need that we put the lifting frame here. We lift, install, then this move to the next segment. It also can be done, or it can also be done using a launching gantry. Yeah, we do the balance cantilever. This is the project I have involved the last time. It's a MRT, rail viaduct, and then the road viaduct. The road viaduct itself, we use a balance cantilever While for the railway, the MRT, they use the full span actually at that time. So it's a mixed method. And because it's a mixed method, we have to design differently, and we have to make a proper planning on how to design and how to construct all these things. I'm not sure whether I have time for this video, but I think I have to show it because it's a very interesting video. This is the continuity of that previous video. So this is the very first segment called the pier table. They have to do the adjustment using a hydraulic jack. And then they do the vertical post tensioning. Then this is the first segment. They put the temporary post tensioning. Then they do the cantilever tendon. They do the stressing. Then they move to the subsequent segments. And this is the very last segment. They do the adjustment, hopefully it matches. Then they do cast in situ only for the last segment to join it together. Then after that, they do the bottom post tensioning, something like that. So that's how we do the balance cantilever thing. Another method, which is also very creative, in my opinion, is this incremental launching. Well, they're doing the casting on site, but I cannot say that this is a casting situ because they're doing the casting yard here. Yeah, they're doing the casting yard here, and then after they finish, they just launch the whole thing. Then they cast the next segment here. Then they pull it together again. Then they cast the next segment again, one by one, something like this. So this is the casting yard, and this is the site, and the delivery method is by pulling it together. So I can still say that this is the precast. They do, yes, the casting yard is here, so that they just pull together something like this. Yeah, something like this. So the casting yard is here, and when everything's ready, and they just launch something like this. I have one last video. I know my time is almost running out. This is a 2-minute video. This is the casting yard at the end of the bridge. Also on site, actually. So they put the rebar, they put all the tendon, all this thing. And then there is some mechanism, again, using a hydraulic jack to pull this. This is how they pull the segment forward. And then they continue casting the next segment. And they keep on pulling until the end. And this is how they do. They put some Teflon so that there's to minimize the friction, something like that. It's all done by hydraulic jack. All this thing. Just to speed up all the process. It looks easy in the video, but on site it will be very, very tough and must be very, very precise in terms of the geometric control of this thing. Once it reaches the site, then they do the final adjustment on the alignment, and then they put the bearing, because at this moment they are still sitting on the hydraulic jack. Then after they put the the bearing, then the work is finished. And they clear up all the casting yard. And this is if we want to do the planning, the design, yeah, how we designing the tendon, yeah, is during the construction. Again, we have to know what's going on site. This one, I think I just skip. This is some of the project I've been involved, but I just skip it. Okay, my last word is engineering is actually an art, because so many methods that we can do is an art, and it's fun. It's really fun to do all these things, and we have to enjoy the process of this planning and design thing, especially on the site. Okay, thank you very much for your attention, and these are some of the video references that I use in this presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Gunawan, for the very nice presentation. Okay, everyone, now we are entering the Q&A session. So for you who want to ask directly to Pak Gunawan, please raise your hand so that I can call you to deliver the question, or you can just write it down to the chat box. Okay, is there any question for Pak Gunawan? Anyone? Still no question. So it's my job to do the first to break the ice. Okay, Pak Gunawan, I have a very simple question. During your experience, okay, have you ever found a situation that there is a modification in the construction or erection method, and because of that, you know, the stresses in the precast element will exceed the capacity of the original design? Have you ever in that situation? I mean, in your real experience.
Yes, that's why we have to do some strengthening. Yeah. Okay, some of the strengthening, and then we have also, there was one case also we have to adjust the stressing.
I see.
We have to adjust that one also.
If you don't mind, can you if you don't mind, can you mention in what kind of situation exactly during segmental bridge construction or balancing cantilever construction?
Oh, okay. That one is actually the one in Singapore. The one in the, I'm not sure that one is at the rail viaduct or the road viaduct itself. I think it's the road viaduct itself. Because there is actually a miscommunication between the designer, not the designer, the contractor actually, about the segments. Okay.
So the dimension does not match, or the shear key does not match, in its specific problem do you face?
Actually, the tendon profile.
Tendon profile.
That's the worst.
Yeah. You cannot just adjust the stressing if the profile is incorrect.
Because they misinterpret between the design drawing, while we show the tendon profile, the center of the force.
Okay.
And also the bar chair. I mean, for the ducting, I'm not sure how to say, because the profile is different between the center of the force and then at the soffit of the duct.
I see.
So fortunately we managed to settle the thing.
Okay.
Of course, because the MRT is already there now.
Okay, I think we have already some question in the chat room. First question is from Andreas. Okay. Since most of the methods described are mainly relying on the post-tension system, how do you ensure the integrity and continuity of the structure in long term against excessive loss of the process.
Okay. As an engineer, I mean, yeah, definitely we have to do a proper assumption, proper calculation in terms of the losses, especially the long-term one. And we have to do also the proper, the proper control on site, whether they are doing exactly as per what we design or not. Because everything looks well on paper, may not be the case on site, especially we are doing about this positioning thing. If we put too much forces, it will cause also a bad effect also. If we do not do the proper stressing, the losses of this thing also may be different from the calculation.
I see.
Yeah, that's why when we do the construction, we have to, usually we have in Singapore, we have to submit this ONM manual, operational and maintenance manual, meaning that especially the maintenance, for example, at which interval we have to do some visual inspection, for example, and then within every 5 years of what we have to come on site and do some testing, especially for this post-tensioning.
So we have to do the monitoring, right?
Yes, monitoring and maintenance.
Okay.
Some they even provide additional hole for future strengthening. They already put some requirements.
I see.
The blister,
Okay.
all this concrete blister already there. So anything happen to the existing tendon, they can easily do the external post tensioning. That's why the planning is very, very, yeah, I would say very clever in Singapore. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Maybe we can move to the next question. This one is from Mr. Junata. It's quite general question. Can you give us comparison about time and cost for all various methods?
Okay, it's very easy answer. No, I cannot. because it's very complicated.
Yeah.
Very complicated. Yeah.
Okay, Pak Junata, that's your answer.
Yeah,
Maybe Pak Gunawan is not specialized in the cost estimation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I cannot answer that.
Okay. Next question from Mr. Hartanto Wibowo. Okay. If the section were match cast and post tension, what is the effect of the grouting the shear keys?
Okay, just for the additional measures only, because before we do the post tensioning thing, yeah, at least this joint must be able to carry itself weight, for example, before we put the post tensioning. Although after we put the grout and also the shear key, we still hang it. We only release after the post tensioning is done. But again, this is only an additional measure to make sure that this is perfectly bonded together. I hope that's the question. Am I answering the question? What is the effect of grouting the shear keys?
Mr. Hartanto, can you elaborate more if the question is not
just
very matched with the answer? Oh, Mr. Hartanto is not there. Okay.
Hello?
Hi.
Yes.
Oh, please
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, so the question is, like, if you're going to match cast and post tension, then there's no need actually to grout the shear keys, right? So is it a code requirement that you should grout the shear key, or is it just for, because good measure is going to cost you money also, right?
Yes.
So if you don't need it, then why would you do it?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay, by right in the design, we only rely for the post tensioning forces. Yes, I noticed some of the projects, they also do not apply the grout. They just purely shear key and post tensioning, yes. But again, that one depends on the client requirement. The one that I'm involved in Singapore and also in Hong Kong, they specify and they require this grouting, and they even specify what strength on all these things. So that's, I would say that's an additional measure. That's all.
Do you also put rebars at the intersection between the segments? Normal rebars.
No,
No.
no. There is no longitudinal rebar connecting each segment. No.
Only by the post tensioning
Yes,
bars.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Pak Gunawan, continuing the question from Pak Hartanto about the shear key. Is it always from concrete? I mean, because I saw somewhere in the drawings they use a kind of steel device for the female and male keys. Have you ever seen that?
No. No.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure whether why do, I mean, okay, I cannot understand why they do a separating, meaning they do the concreting and then they put the additional steel. Is it the construction error? They try to rectify something.
No. They cast the female device on one part and the female male still on the other part, and they match together.
And then there's some
like
a dowel, that one.
Something like that.
Okay, female, then okay. That can be done, but from my experience, it's always male and female. That's from my experience. I never come across that kind of method myself.
Okay, let's see if we have another question. Yes, we have. This one is from Pak Sunardi Yusuf. What kind is the most parameter? Sorry, it's scrolled up. What is the most influencing parameter where we choose the best one? Oh my God, it's scrolled up again. I cannot read.
I understand the question. Okay.
Can you read it?
Yes. What is the most influencing parameter that we need to consider if we want to on site?
Just the method lah. The most influencing parameter. What is the first one to consider? Okay,
if we are talking in the general construction method, I always like to use in bahasa is a BMW seri S. Biaya, mutu, waktu, and safety. Although some of the, I mean, in terms of clients, the parameter definitely is money. Sometimes money, sometimes it's cost, sometimes it's the schedule. But from our perspective, in terms of as an engineer, we have to consider also the safety and then also our capabilities. Because different methods requires a special equipments. Do we have that kind of experience or not? Do we have that kind of equipments or not? That's also one of the consideration from our part, and also design of this thing. So if we're talking about the parameter, yeah, from their side is definitely money and time, but from our side is also the quality, our capabilities, all this thing.
There is no one specific best answer for everyone.
That's why it's an art. That's why it's an art. Everything can be different.
Okay. Next question, Pak Gunawan from Arif Wibowo. How do we check what kind of strength that have arrived? Stress relief strength or low relaxation strength without any mill certificate? Okay. We cannot.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. some even if they even if they have this mail certificate or something, some of the client they do request us to do the testing also, but that's
Okay.
also another cost. I mean, but if there is no mail certificate, I think from my perspective, I just reject the thing.
Easily reject. Just
Yeah, I mean,
send another.
yeah, I mean, if the requirement, the specification request, I mean, specify something like this, we have to strictly follow.
Okay. 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 Next question from Andrew Nugraha. Does negative tendon in balance cantilever method also give long-term effect on the superstructure like shaping chamber, or is just useful for construction phase only?
Yes, construction and also for the final stage also.
Okay.
Because for the
Okay.
final stage, there is also a negative bending moment. And yes, there's the box inside. We can also do the yeah, I mean, yeah. So construction
Because we do not because we do not release the stressing after the construction finish, right?
No,
The stressing is still there.
yeah, still there. Yes.
Okay. The second question: does wet joint is always needed for the joint the precast and pier table?
No, not really. Not really. Depends on the specification. Depends on the design. Not really required. I mean, if there is no wet joint, then we do tensioning.
Okay.
That's how we do it. Yes.
Next question, from Mr. Chi Kyong. The balance cantilever and segmental box girder method seems quite similar in construction. Can you explain further which method is suit for certain circumstances, such as due to span length between two piers or other circumstances? Balance cantilever and segmental
method seems quite similar. Yes. Can you explain further which method is suitable for certain circumstances, such as due to the span length between two piers or other circumstances? Okay. Segmental. Okay, segmental box girder. Segmental box girder can be done using two methods. One is using balance cantilever. The other one is using span by span.
Launching. Okay.
Span by span using launching or what other thing. So what? Okay. So, okay, for balance cantilever, usually we choose balance cantilever if we do not have any access here. Okay. That's usually that's how we choose. But of course, there is another there's another consideration whether we have the equipment or not. That's the thing.
Okay. There are many factors,
Yes, but I mean, one of the most common reason is that we do not have any access here. Although for the span by span, also again, it's coming out from the launching gantry. There's also another huge investment. So yeah, I'm not sure whether I answered the because I see that segmental can be done balance cantilever or span by span. Yeah, it's the same, but again, in terms of design, in terms of planning, it's completely different. Especially how we arrange the tendon is completely different. Yeah.
Okay. So the balance cantilever is actually the method, and the segmental is, not the method itself, right?
Yes, that's the section. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I think we are approaching the limit, so we have two last questions maybe from Mr. Arif Ibowo again. What is the limit tension stress for web stress?
What is the limit tension stress? For me myself, I just refer to the code, which I'm not sure if I can remember correctly. For the compression, is it a 0.4 FC prime, or for the for the tension is what 0.4 something FC prime square. I mean, square root of FC prime. I mean, just
So it's allowed to crack, Pak Gunawan.
Sorry.
Is it allowed to have some cracks in the bridge segmental?
No.
If you say we have
No.
some limitation in the tension side.
No. But if we are following this, following the ACI, they allow for some tension, although it's not cracked yet.
Oh, I see.
Allows-
Okay.
But
The
again,
the modulus of rupture.
yeah, the crack the uncracked, the class U, just follow the requirement.
So no specific requirement for the bridge, just follow the concrete
Yeah.
code for the design, right?
Yes.
Okay. The last question before we take a break. How do we calculate long-term precise loss for unbonded external tendons? I think it's okay. Let's Pak Gunawan answer.
This is very tricky actually.
Uh-huh.
How to do it? Yeah. I'm not sure whether this explained or not. For example, okay, after we do the first stressing, and then subsequently, when we do the second stressing here, the first tendon will suffer for the elastic shortening
I see.
because of the second tendon.
Mhm.
And then subsequently, the second tendon will suffer for one elastic shortening. The first tendon will suffer for two elastic shortening.
Okay. Cumulative effect.
Yeah, cumulative effect. So we have to how do we calculate the losses? Is actually we have to do it stage by stage.
Mhm.
That's why very important for us to understand what is going on site. Yeah, so that we can calculate backwards
I see.
the losses stage by stage. The cambering also we have to do it stage by stage.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because during the construction, the load is alive, right?
Yes, that's why it's fun. It's very fun.
Okay, Pak Gunawan, thank you for the very interesting talk this afternoon. I think we can end your session. Thank you very much again,
You're welcome. I hope it helped.
and thanks to all the participants for your participating this session. So now we have a short break. I think 10 minutes, Anthony. 5 minutes. Is Mr. Matthew Palmer already joining us?
Yes. 5 minutes. Mr. Matthew Palmer already joined us, so have some connection problem this morning. So
Okay, everyone. We will have a very short 5 minutes breaks, and we will have the original first presentation later on. Okay, please do your break. We will see you soon.